Okay, here we go. So I'll start with the syllabus description. Research term paper, 9 to 10 pages. That does not count the title page, which is required, with a suitable and at least minimally creative title. That would mean term paper would not really qualify, nor would research paper or theology paper or any such thing. Let's go for a title. Minimum of 12 bibliographical resources. Those would be books and or journal articles. Those 12 do not include the Bible, though you are strongly encouraged to use the Bible. And 300 pages of reading from those 12 sources. And that should all be documented probably either in your bibliography or maybe as an additional page. In fact, I would suggest an additional page so that your bibliography can actually just be done in proper bibliographical form. If you have questions about how to do that, you can probably check just about any good book that has a bibliography and follow the example. Learn by doing. You can do it. This paper will address a particular doctrine, theologian, or theological controversy that is relevant to the subject material of the present course. Now, as a matter of fact, any particular Christian doctrine and any Christian theologian and any theological controversy is very likely relevant to the present course. But I do have there in italics and boldface, all term paper topics are to receive approval from the professor. Now, I suppose you could wait on that. Some of you have talked to me already, and I've said, sounds great, go for it. If you have not talked to me, and now we're staring down, I've moved the required outline and bibliographical list from Saturday night, which seemed kind of crazy, right there in the middle of the Holy Weekend, to I think it's Wednesday night. Now, you can get it to me earlier than that, and you could certainly float a topic to me earlier than that. You could even do that over the weekend if you haven't already. It would be highly unusual, but not impossible for me to say, not sure if that's really germane to this course. But more critically, I might be able to help you focus it or hone it down to something, manageable in 9 to 10 pages. Because that may seem like a long paper to you. I understand that, but that's a short paper. And particularly like if you say, well, I'm going to take 9 to 10 pages and write about, sin. Well, you could probably do that. But, realize that many volumes have been written on the doctrine of sin. And what are you going to be able to say in 9 or 10 pages that's of much help or significance? So it'd be better to focus. You might go, if you were to say sin, I might say, well, why don't you deal with Martin Luther's understanding of sin or St. Augustine's understanding of sin, which, by the way, also would be volumes. John Wesley or whatever. In other words, the more focused you are, the better. So really the thing to me would be, is there a topic that interests you? What would you like to learn more about or explore a little bit more? When I took a class roughly similar to this one in college, mine was actually a GE class, kind of called a Survey of Christian Thought, sophomore year. I still remember the title of my paper, Is the God of Mormonism the God of the Bible? And really, my term paper, in terms of its answer, probably could have been answered with one word, because that word would have been no. I suppose I see things a little bit differently now, although I think that's still a very viable question. In many ways, I still think the answer is no. In fact, probably in the most important ways, I think the answer is no. But there's a big however that goes with that, which involves exploring. What does it mean to talk about God and having the same God or a different God and that sort of thing? I'm just giving you that as an example. My paper, I think, was about 6 pages, but that's all that was required of me for that little GE class. So, yeah, I'm looking for any doctrine. If you wanted to do, I would discourage like a biography of a theologian, not just a biography, because, you know, I want you to do a little theologizing. And I do want to hear your voice in this paper. It doesn't have to be just about what you believe, of course, but I do want to get a sense of your engagement with whatever doctrine or controversy or issue you want to tackle. It wouldn't be, LGBTQ IA plus, in 9 to 10 pages, challenging. But if you were to say like, well, what has this particular theologian written or said about this topic? See, then you're getting yourself some focus, and that's going to be real important. It helps you to narrow down your research. It gives your paper a little bit more of a precision. And again, in 9 to 10 pages, precision will be of the essence. But any doctrine, from the doctrine of creation, human beings in the image of God. I mean, I know I had you do a little kind of reflection on that paper on that earlier, but that's still obviously fair game, especially like you said, asked like, well, what did Karl Barth say about humanity created in God's image? And in fact, Barth had a lot to say about that. And even summarizing that in 9 to 10 pages. Oh my goodness. But again, I want to emphasize that whatever you do, it shouldn't simply be summary or reporting. I'm encouraging you to begin to exercise your capacity as a young theologian to engage this question, or whatever your question is, with a sense that you have a voice, and a writing voice that's developing. And that's what I want to encourage. Even if you don't think you're going to be a writer, if you ever compose Bible studies or sermons or whatever in the future, being able to write is kind of important. So take this, assignment seriously. I know you will. But I think even occasionally, I haven't done it a lot, but occasionally I've even commented, not that maybe you didn't take note of this, but I've said things like, this would make a good term paper topic. Unfortunately, none of those moments are coming to me at this very second, but maybe some of you jotted down a little something. You might want to go back in your notes. Or, again, go back in your notes and see if there are places where you went like, oh my goodness, this was important, or I wish we talked about this more, I wish I knew more, or I wish I knew more about this theologian. Yeah, you can do that. It wouldn't even be, you've read a little book by Amos Yong. Amos Yong has been one of the most prodigious and productive theologians. He might be number one in the last 20 years. He'd be near the top. There's a joke about people who don't have an unpublished thought, and Amos Yong seems pretty close to that. So you could even, like, gee whiz, he has a child with, or a sibling, it's one or the other, I think with Downs, and he's written a book on sort of theology and human ability or disability. I'm not sure that the word disability is getting much play nowadays. There may be better ways to say that, but doing something like that and engaging further with Amos Yong would be great, or at least a possibility. So I hope this gives some ideas to you. If you want to, and I'm putting this in announcements, there'll be comments open. Please reply. If you have a follow-up question, you do it there, not an email to me, but there, so that everybody can benefit from whatever discussion we have subsequent to this little post. I have changed the due date, like I said, already officially. I think it's now Wednesday at midnight I think you should have a working title. A working title doesn't have to be your final title. And a working bibliography does not have to be your final bibliography. But now you have time to come back after the break if you need to get into that library and start looking, because I do want to see, I don't want this to be happening, already it's late in the semester, right? I don't want it to be the night before. So it's important that you honor this next Wednesday deadline. My own failure to address this in class meant, and plus that it's Saturday night before Easter, it seems crazy. But it seemed right to give you a little more time. But then know that the due date is just the next week, I think at the end of the week. And I'm not interested in hearing about people wanting more time. So you have a deadline. Just like if you're doing a Bible study, a week from so-and-so or 2 weeks from now or whatever it is, or a sermon, you have a deadline. You won't be able to show up on Sunday morning and say, hey, I needed a little more time to work on my sermon, so can we come back on Tuesday? Okay? So, yeah. I think this will be helpful, and if there's any, again, follow-up questions, let's do it in Canvas, and I'll be checking Canvas over the weekend as needed and try to respond to any questions you might have. That was my lovely honey who just walked in there she went. She's been working very hard this morning and all kinds of projects. She just gets, well, anyway, her art back there. She's my favorite artist in the world. She's my favorite woman in the world. She's my honey. I don't know if I've ever showed you, but I know I probably haven't, but I've got this great collection of crosses. Can you see them? Over my desk. That's one of my wife's really wild paintings. That's me in, assuming I'm getting it on the screen, that's me in Liverpool walking with, well, not the Beatles, but likenesses of the Beatles. I have just as crazy a bookshelf at home as all my shelves at school. Just, I would say littered, but let's go with cluttered with all kinds of extra things. My favorite comic book artist when I was a boy, had him sign one of his comic book covers a couple of years ago. My mind. Captain America, Jim Steranko. One of the great albums of all time, Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. Another one of my wife's paintings. Isn't this fun? I'm just giving you the 360 in our little room of creativity. Unfortunately, my room hasn't been one of much creativity. I've got to get back to writing. Just like you do. All right, that's enough.